Welcome to People Love Process. Now, normally I don't turn on my forward-facing camera except if I'm doing a over-the-shoulder vector building. This is a little different content. We're kind of going back to basics again. And pardon me, but I'm going to read from the intro so I don't miss anything to cover what we're going to be covering in this movie. And I wanted to take you through and focus on specifically the Pathfinder methods and shape building basics. Over the last few weeks, I've been helping a student in South Africa by the name of Angelique learn how to create vector artwork, send her a copy of my book. And just to improve her vector building skills, she had a lot of questions. We focused on in the previous video where we built now I can't remember the name of the character, Fusselwomp or whatever. It was part of the exercise files on a course I did for LinkedIn. So software like Adobe Illustrator can be overwhelming if you're just beginning to use it. That said, I've been building vector art for 23 years using Adobe Illustrator, and it can frustrate me at times. So I can completely understand when I do workshops or I speak or I'm demonstrating something at a conference, etc. I'll get to certain points, and I'm so used to it, I don't even think about it. And then I show the audience and they're like you can tell that they're going, oh yes, we deal with that all the time. And we're going to be covering one of those topics because it's one of the biggest stumbling blocks in Illustrator, in my opinion. And it still isn't, it's never been fully addressed. Yes, you'll have Adobe certified experts. All that means is they got at least 70% correct on a test they paid to take. That's why I don't bother to ever take those tests. As it stands right now, Adobe Illustrator has approximately 86 tools. Now add functionalities to it through pull-down menus, etc. And you're talking over 100 and some odd ways to create vector art, and that can be overwhelming, especially for somebody new to Illustrator. So let's thoroughly take a look at the Pathfinder palette and its functionality that's found on it, and we need to take a look at how those behave and what you could possibly use to do shape building with them. So with that said, let's jump into it. So we're going to first start with the Unite feature, and we have the Pathfinder palette right over here. I'm just going to move it up here. I can close that. We're going to focus on first the 4 shape modes. Actually, it's called Pathfinder, but the second row are called Pathfinders, plural. Whether it's the top row or the bottom row, all of these are what are categorized as Boolean technology. Adobe didn't develop that. It's open source. That's why you can find these same type of tools in other vector programs like Affinity, CorelDRAW, etc. Nobody owns that. They might have different names, like in Freehand they did. Freehand had Unite, but they didn't call it Unite. It was called like Fuse. I mean, it's been 23 years since I used Freehand. I might have gotten that wrong. This is Minus Front. I know it wasn't called Minus Front in Freehand. I believe it was called Punch, which, in my opinion, makes more sense. And at times you might hear me saying Punch because that locked in because I did that a lot in Freehand. You have Intersect. That name makes sense. I thought they did a good name with that. And then you have this one. And now that we're going to start, I'm going to normally when I record video for People Love, I turn off tooltips because I just want everything to be clean so you're clarified focus on what we're creating. But in this case, we'll go ahead and go to General under Preferences. I'm going to turn on Tooltips because that way when I hover over things, it says unite. This one, minus front, you can tell an engineer, name that. Intersect makes sense. This one, exclude, makes sense. And then we'll demonstrate divide. That one's a cool one. We featured that in the previous movie, but we'll cover it again. Trim, merge, crop, outline, and minus back. Another great name by an engineer. You have minus front, minus back. We'll compare the two. And I have a lot of commentary on this as I was reviewing it myself. Now, a lot of people say, well, you could do this or do that. And they're always pointing out these obscure features or methodologies in Illustrator just because I didn't mention them. We're covering everything in the Pathfinder in terms of all the functionality you see on the panel. Now, here's the thing. Even though I'm going to do that, there's probably going to be some people that still point out, well, you could do this and that. Yeah, I get that. And again, like I said, there's over 100 different ways to do functionality and tools in Adobe Illustrator. But when it all comes down to building, I make the process as simple as possible. And if you go to my website and you look at all the projects I've created over the last 23 years of using Illustrator, I've used maybe a total of 18 to 20 tools and methodology. So you don't need to know everything. And I think that's what is a little overwhelming for people. So we're going to start with Unite. That's the first one in the top row. It's one of their 4 shape modes. And this is a good example of having different pieces. I have these rectangular type pieces for the branches, these little nodes. We have some free-floating circles out here. So if I select everything, we don't want an outline. Let's get rid of the outline. We'll go ahead and just color it filled black shapes like this. And if I click on Unite, it will unite all these shapes into one cohesive shape. So if I click this, you'll see that's what it's done. If I go into Keyline View, you can see everything's fused together or united together into one cohesive shape. And this is a group. So if you move it around, it'll move as one unit in a group. And you can see in the Appearance panel, it's a group item. Now, when I first moved to Illustrator, and one of the first creative keyboard shortcuts I've taught myself feature-wise in Illustrator was because I was used to freehand would always create compounds. And we're going to be covering that too, because I think that's one of the biggest issues that confuses so many users. And it doesn't help when it's inconsistent in Illustrator, in my opinion. And there's 2 types of compounds. There's compound paths and compound shapes. So years ago, when I first started using Illustrator after using freehand for 15 years, and then they bought and killed it, Adobe did, that's when I switched to Illustrator, I realized, well, these aren't compounds, these are groups. So I created a keyboard shortcut. I've applied to F7, so I've been using it literally for 23 years now. And if you look at the Appearance panel, I just hit F7, it turns it into a compound path. And I'll be explaining why I do that. But let's back up, do a Command-Z, get back to just our shapes like this. All 4 of the shape modes here, if you hover over it, notice it says Unite, and then it says in brackets, Option click to create a compound shape. So I just showed you what a compound path is. And a compound shape is, if I hold the Option key down and click on Unite, it doesn't look like anything changed. But if you go to the Appearance panel, it doesn't say group. It says compound shape now. This is because it allows you, this is how you do non-destructive building with the Pathfinder. So if you wanted to change this, you could double click, select this, and let's say you position it down here or something. So you can do those kind of edits. And that's what a compound shape is. It gives you the look and feel of Unite, but it's a compound shape. Now, I would never deliver my final design in this format. It's essentially an effect applied to these shapes. And so what you'd want to do is you might think, well, couldn't I just hit unite and then it would unite these? Well, let's try it. And you can see you're going to get this error that pops up. The filter produced no results. Please select two overlapping paths. Well, you might be going, well, these are overlapping. I know, it's not intuitive. It doesn't make sense. So you either can Command Z to get back to what you have and redo applying the unite, and then it will default to a group nature. That's what it always does with Pathfinder methods. Or you can, with it selected, go to Object and go Expand Appearance, and now it's acting just like what it did after we hit Unite, and you can see it's a group nature in the Appearance panel. But again, after I run these type of functionality in Illustrator, I just hit F7 to turn into a compound. But notice what it does, and this is the part that's frustrating. It compounded it. It's a compound path now, but now it's not filled with anything. So for whatever reason, it removes the color. And I've yet to get a good answer from Adobe Engineer why it does that. So all these things, I'm showing you all these things because as you use the functionality of Pathfinder, you're going to run into this. You're also going to run into some stuff I'm going to bring up and demonstrate for you. And it can be frustrating. I never had to deal with any of this in freehand for 15 years. It just worked. So that's Unite. Grab multiple shapes, whether they're free-floating shapes like these little orbs or they're overlapping shapes, and you unite it, turn it into a compound, and now you have final vector artwork ready to use. Let's jump to the next example here. We started with Unite, so we covered that. The next one we're going to do is minus front. Love the name. Engineer thought he was very creative to come up with that. And you just select two shapes. You click minus front, and it basically punches out the top shape from the back shape. So that's essentially how that function works. We'll go to this one. We're going to do a intersect wherever the two shapes overlap. That is the shape it'll create. Well, if I do it with just these two shapes initially, and I click overlap, it'll get rid of the back shape because it just used it to align the bottom of this. So we're going to Command Z. So this is the type of functionality that to get the specific look you want, we don't want to lose the background. That means you'd have to copy it, Command C, Command F, or use, if you have the contextual menu bar turned on, I always have that off. It just gets in my way. You can hit duplicate after you select this shape, but we'll just hit Command C, Command F, which I have assigned to an F3 keyboard shortcut, so I don't have to go to a pull-down menu, select these two, and go intersect. It's going to take on the color of the top object, so we just have to apply black, but that's essentially what that does. And it just makes it so it almost looks like it's masked in the shape, but all it's done is trim off that edge down at the bottom. The next one's kind of cool because if you're doing a positive negative design, there's certain contexts where those look beautiful, I think. You could select all these shapes like this, and you could go here. It's called Exclude. And again, if you want to do this non-destructively with any of these four here, just hold Option down. We can click the Exclude, and you're going to get a nice positive, negative action going on here. And if I double click on this shape, maybe I think this is pointing in too much, I can just move it out a little bit. So it's very flexible if you prefer building this way, or maybe you think this shape should actually be bigger like that. So it is. This is one of the better Pathfinder features on this panel. I just don't do a lot of positive negative, but if I did, I definitely use this. I have a friend, Robert Pizio, who his style is doing a lot of this, and I know he uses this feature quite a bit. So that one is one of the better features on the Pathfinder menu. And if you wanted this color, you could just direct select any of these and color everything green if you preferred to have it look that way, or whatever color you want. Doesn't matter. Now, all of these, the four features I use, I don't use the positive negative all the time, even though it's great. But I use these first three in the top row quite a bit. The first two every day, pretty much. So think of it as all of these work together. And so if we take this design, let's say we want to create a one color kind of mark. You can combine these methods to pull it off. So I might take this and I'll clone it, Command C, Command F. Once again, I just have F3 keyboard shortcut set up, and I'll just create this. I'll copy it, paste it behind the other shape, select this one, go minus front to knock it out, select this one, go unite, and then I'll just recolor it green. So that's kind of how I do shape building using a combination of those Boolean methods or Pathfinder methods. Now, let's jump to the bottom row, because this is where some of these, in my opinion, are like, what? That was my first reaction years ago, and I haven't really touched some of these ever since. But some of them I do, and I featured one in a previous movie on this channel, and it was this design. And if we zoom out so you can see all these shapes, I just took all these shapes and overlapped them. So they're just strokes, no fills, and this was the size of the tile, basically, I wanted. So all of these are just free-form geometric shapes. And so what I'm going to do is just select all of them, and I'll go to divide, and I'll just click. And notice there is no option like the top four where it says option do it and you build non-destructively. I don't like to say this, because if it's intentional and you know what you need to create and you're doing so, I don't think that's destructive. I think that's just smart. That's why I don't care about working non-destructively, because I know what I want to create and I just create it. So with all these selected, I'm going to click on divide, and it's going to now separate all those pieces. So let's zoom out a little bit. That way we can select everything outside that box like this, and I'll just delete those. I'll go ahead and select all these. Delete those, and I'm just deleting the elements that it divided that I don't want. So what I'm left with is this shape. Now, it's going to group it, which is nice, because then you can move it around if you need to and not leave a piece behind. But let's go ahead and ungroup it. And just to show you what it's done, it's created, oh, did I have extra shapes in? I might add an extra shape. Okay. Anyway, it's just divided all these into individual pieces. So let's go ahead, just because somehow it got those in there. Okay, there we go. So it's just divided it into what I call a kind of a patchwork kind of design. All of these I can color. You saw that in a previous movie where I took this, colored all those shapes, and it was so that I could take this and just create a nice kind of repeat down at the bottom of the label I was creating, and do that as it goes all the way across at the bottom. So divide's kind of cool. Is it something I do all the time? No, but if I need to do something like this, it's the best method to use in terms of Pathfinder. It makes it easy. Let's do another one. And this is the next one. It's called trim. And so if I select this shape, and I go trim, again, it's going to group the result. So let's go ahead and ungroup it. I have that set up as a F6 keyboard shortcut, because I could never remember. I mean, group's easy, Command G. And I could never remember the ungroup command, so I just set up as a keyboard shortcut. Now, if I take this and I bring it down like this, it's almost created like separations. And it's like minus front, but it just retains the top object. So there might be certain context for this. Maybe you're doing T-shirts. In this case, you could separate the colors and do it this way. So it just depends on what you need to do, why you're doing it, and what you're creating. But that's how trim works. So is it something that I use a lot? No. I can't even remember the last time I used it, but that's, I tried as hard as I could to show you real world kind of usage on these things. And some of them, as you're going to see, I'm like, I don't know. If you can figure it out, great. That's why I just focus on the things I need to do. And if I know the tools, and I don't do much experimentation unless I can't get exactly what I want with the tools that I use mostly. Here's the next one. The next one is called merge. Now, the term unite, which is in the top row, the first one we covered, unite is its uniting shapes. Merge is its merging shapes. They're just two different words, but they kind of mean the same. The difference is on these, if it's all the same color and you click merge, it'll do just that. It'll merge everything. So you can see how all of these have merged. If I Command Z and go to keyline view, you can see they're just all separate elliptical shapes. So I could just select this one or select this one. But if I select them all and I go merge, it fuses them all together so they'll move as one unit. Okay. Why wouldn't I just use unite? That's the part I don't get. Okay, whatever. But there is another way you can do it. So let's say you have the exact same design, but instead of all being orange, it's multicolored. And again, these are all separate. You know, they're just put in an order where they overlap and stuff. But if I select all of these and I hit merge, it'll group it. And if I ungroup it, it kind of chops off these areas like this. And so I guess this is useful if there's certain things you're going to do, but to be completely honest with you, I can't think of a context I'd ever use this. If I was screen printing this design, I needed this many colors. That'd be expensive to do a screen print with that many colors. Maybe you'd use it. I don't know. I'm just showing you what they do. That's why I never use this one. I don't think I've ever used it on a real project ever. So might be useful for you, however. Let's jump to another one. This one is interesting. Is it something that I'd use a lot? I might use it every now and then, but all these are, if we go to the keyline view, you can see they're just all elliptical shapes. So whatever's the topmost shape will become the element that crops all the other shapes. So if I select all of these and I click crop, this is what you're going to end up with. Now what it does is it'll group it again, but if you ungroup it, you can see it trims everything like that. And even with that. So if that's what you want, this would be a feature you'd want to use. So this one isn't so bad. I think this one could have some usage to it. So that's that. Let's jump to the next one. Okay, this is one of those where the first time I ever tried it, I'm like, what? And I'll show you. So we'll select these two. And this is called outline. And we'll click it. And I was like, what did it just do? I'm going, wait a minute. We'll ungroup it. Let's go ahead and zoom in. Is this adding like a profile? And so I selected it. And I go up here. No, because if there is thick and thins, it would show the profile. No. It says it's uniform. That's not uniform. What is that? And I go, oh, it's a stroke. Maybe, no. You know, how thick is that stroke? Oh, it's a 0-point stroke. So if we go 1, oh, okay. So it's kind of a preview bug of sorts. I found that a little weird. Let's go to our graphic styles. Where did I put that? Graphic styles here. We'll just go ahead and color that one, this. And then I go, this must be the same thing. Yeah, it's a stroke, but it's 0 point. Okay, let's go ahead and color that. And I'm going, well, wait, what are these down here? And then I realize, oh, so what it does is it breaks apart your artwork and creates strokes from it, but then segments them and separates them. So this is no longer has a bottom. This no longer has a bottom. There's a gap in it. And it's like after doing this, I remember when I first tried this years ago, but after doing it even now, I'm going, what would I use this for? I couldn't think of a thing. I go, well, maybe I'm thinking too hard. Maybe it works better if you just start with outlines and then do it. That must be the trick. So let's select this and go outline. Nope, now it just doesn't show you anything, but it does the exact same thing. So let's go ahead and ungroup it. You know, here we don't need that. Here we don't need that. So here we'll color that one and we'll color this outline. So that's what that one does. Unless I'm missing something, maybe one of you can tell me. I've never had need of it over the years, so I don't think it's that helpful. But prove me wrong if you can. I'd love to know a good usage for it. The next one kind of goes with minus front. So the second one up here in the shape modes, minus front is it takes the top object and punches it or minus fronts it, which again, stupid term, punches it through the bottom object. So if I select it, click minus front, boom, we have a crescent moon. Okay. So what does this one do? Well, this is minus back. Great name. And it does kind of the opposite, where it takes the back shape and it minus fronts it, minus backs it. Doesn't even make sense. I hate saying that. It minuses from the top shape. So if I select this, select the top shape, and I go minus back, boom, now you have a sliver of the moon, a spring equinox version of the moon, if you will. And that's what it does. Well, I would just build that the other way. I'd never use that button. It almost seems like they put this down here because they needed another icon to align with the expand button or something. I don't know. It's just kind of a dumb methodology in my opinion. Okay. So that's how that one works. By the way, I have a cute little story. I was out doing yard work when my oldest daughter, Savannah, was like 2 years old, and she's running around the yard, and she liked hanging out with me when I do yard work. And my parents had just left. They were there over the weekend. And I'm mowing the lawn. I stop. I'm emptying the grass bag, and my daughter's pointing up in the sky, and she's going, look. And I go, yeah, that's the moon. And she looks at me and goes, no. I go, what do you mean, no? That's the moon. You can still see it in the sky. And she goes, and she puts her hands on her hips and she goes, toe clipping in the sky. And I'm like, what? Where'd you get that? And Grandpa told me that. I'm going, okay, that's kind of funny. Okay, let's jump to the next thing. So minus back, compound. So there's compound issues. So we have this artwork. If I select it and we go to the appearance panel, you can see it's a compound path. But let's say I want to make some edits to this artwork. So I'll turn on these shapes. I want these birds to be mean. So I want to fuse these shapes and give this guy a buck tooth for whatever reason. Now, if I unite this as is by selecting these two, it's going to take the top object's color and apply it. I want to keep it black. So I'll first select this, color those black. Then I'll select my art. We can go to unite, and boom, it edits it the way I want. So now all the artwork is edited like this. This is a simple example of shape building. but it was a compound path when it started. Every time you use a Boolean method like this in Illustrator, it's going to revert back to group nature. So notice this group nature. So let's say you want to do another edit. We'll turn on this layer, and we want to put a bag under this guy's eye. He's a bird brain. So if I select this and select our element we just edited, and we go minus front, oh, some of our artwork disappeared. Now, it's pretty obvious that some of the artwork disappeared. Nobody would not notice this. But if you're working in a larger context, a more complex design, or elements that span over a layout, let's say, and you use a Pathfinder method, but you don't see the elements off screen somewhere else in your design or layout that might disappear when you do this, that could be a problem. That's what I discovered years ago, and it's why I created my keyboard shortcut. So after I do this, after I make the first edit on the eyes and the buck tooth here, you can see it's a group nature. This is why I changed it. So I just run a keyboard command after every Boolean method, hit F7, changes to a compound path. I can now take the edit I want to make with the bag under the eye, go minus front, and you don't lose anything. So I set that up years ago in my own workflow to avoid this problem, because I kept having it happen, and I thought I was doing something wrong. Matter of fact, every time I've done a workshop and I cover this, there's always like a guffaw in the audience, like, oh. And it's like, because everybody just assumes they're doing something wrong. No, this is expected behavior in Adobe Illustrator. And it's expected because nobody who codes Adobe Illustrator software actually builds. If they did, they would run into this and they go, you know what, we should probably change that. They don't. And I got them to change it in one version of Illustrator. They changed it so it would retain the compound nature. And then all the Adobe certified pros got upset. Why? I don't know. They just got upset. And so they reverted back, and it's been this way forever. So now, even though it worked after I changed the compound path, every time you use a Pathfinder methodology, notice it's reverted back to a group. Now, here's the irony and the inconsistency and the confusion. Let's say I decide I want to add another bird. Maybe it's his angry thought birds chasing the good thought bird, whatever you want to read into that. But right now, this is a group. Well, if you're uniting, that won't happen. If you're removing, it will lose stuff. So if I select this shape, and again, this is on top, so we'll color it black, and I select this, even though this shape isn't a compound, but I select this, and now I go unite, it'll unite. You don't lose anything. You only lose stuff, or things will disappear, elements will disappear, specifically free-floating elements that are detached from, or from being part of the character in this case. You could lose them. But if you unite, it always works. But if you minus front, or like the eye, punch through, or a shape, you can lose elements. And this confuses more people who use Adobe Illustrator. Now, a lot of people will go, well, you could just do it non-destructively. Well, you could if it makes sense to do that. Like what I showed previously with the tree, that makes sense. Here's another example. Let's turn this one on. Let's say, you know, I didn't have a branch here, and I thought this shape might have been just too much of a blank area, so I want to add this. My shape already is a compound path, so I could select this, hold Option down again, and go minus front. And that way, it would give me the visual appearance. And then if I wanted to, I could select this shape. Let's say I want to move it down further. You could do that. Or maybe I want it to align with the other side. You could do that. And it will act like it's been minus front through the design itself. So that's fine. Let's say you want to do more edits like this. Well, actually, let's go back to our original shape like this. I would normally do this. This is a compound, so I'll just go minus front. It gives me that because I know exactly where I want where I want it to be. So again, that points to a mentality. Do you think through your design enough so as you draw it out, and I drew all these out when I created assets for my Take or Make book, I know what I want it to look like. I just need to build it. If that's the case, non-destructive building is a waste of time. Just build it the way you intend it to be. But making this edit, it's going to revert back to a group. So if I go to punch this shape out to add a branch here, things will disappear. And is it noticeable if I go minus front here? Well, yeah, I think you'd notice that you're missing some content here. So let's undo that. But it doesn't happen when you hold Option down and you go minus front. It'll non-destructively show it the way it should be. My point is, if they can get this to work that way, why can't they just get regular minus to work that way? I don't know. They're the engineers, not me. But we have one non-destructive build into this. You could select this one. It's on top, so we want to color it the same. But maybe you want to put a branch down here on the stem, and I could select that, select our artwork that already has one non-destructive. I can hold Option down, in this case, hold Option and unite, and now my design looks visually the way it should be, but I have a non-destructive negative element, and I have a non-destructive positive element. So if you prefer building this way, there's nothing wrong with it. This is a good feature if you don't figure out your design first, is what I'm saying. But again, you need to expand this, because this is essentially putting it in a shape, compound shape. So you'd want to go to Object, and you would go to Expand Appearance. Then everything would act as if you ran minus front and unite like normal. But again, it's going to revert to a compound nature. So if now, again, if I go ahead and go, we have the color green here. If I go F7, which is all F7 literally is it would happen if you go down to Compound Path and go, I want to make this. So if I do that, it'll do that again where it changes colors. So all of these things are very confusing, and a lot of it doesn't make any sense. This is not user intuitive behavior, in my opinion. And all of these things could be refined, they could be fixed, and it could work a lot easier and not be so like, well, why did that do that? What did I do wrong? Well, the thing is, and unfortunately, that's what I always tell Adobe engineers is, you say it's expected behavior, but I'm telling you, users of the software are getting confused by this. And they immediately default, well, I must have done something wrong. No, you're not doing anything wrong. That's just the way Illustrator works, because the engineers decided it should work that way. And they only decided that because they don't actually create with it. So I just wanted to point that out. Let's jump to another one. This is another design here. Go in a specific order, knowing the limitations. Would I want to take these elements and unite them with this? Because this is already a compound path. Well, no, I'd start probably with the zigzag, select this, and I go minus front. But notice, I didn't lose anything because I started with the compound. But now it's defaulted, if you look at the appearance, to a group nature. But as long as you're uniting, so if I take these shapes, and I don't want everything to change to yellow, so let's change those to green. Select this shape, even though it's not a compound. Because I'm uniting, there's no problem with uniting. You don't lose things. It's only when you try to do a minus front from a shape that is a non-compound path. So it's kind of confusing. And this was the way I would handle it, knowing the limitations. And then, of course, I would go ahead and change it back into a compound nature. And notice it didn't change color in this context. So the reason why I build this way is because I found that's the way where it won't change the color, which isn't a huge deal, but it's just annoying. So these confuse professional designers. They confuse designers who are new to the software. And it really shouldn't be that way. The sign that their user experience isn't as good as it could be is when your features alone confuse the user. So that's something I think Adobe could improve on. I won't hold my breath, though. Here's another one. Years ago, they came out with freeform gradient. Y'all know what linear gradient is. So let's open up our gradient palette. We'll pull this out here. So you have a linear gradient like this, but they came out with a freeform gradient. And freeform gradients are, oops, I didn't mean to apply it to that shape. Freeform gradients are like this here. And you can see I have freeform. If I click on edit gradient, these are the nodes where you can adjust the size. This is as large as one can get. This is as small as one can get. And then you can just position these wherever you want. And it does a freeform gradient in between the colors. And I'm going, well, that's kind of cool. I like that. So it took me all of 5 minutes to figure out there's a problem. Not with that feature, but once again, is a problem with compound. If I select this, you can see it's a compound path, but I have graphic styles saved to linear. So if I fill it with the linear gradient, it works fine, looks fine. Let's say you want to change that to a radial. You could go here, change it to a radial. You can even flip it around if you want the colors reverse. So all that works fine. I'm going, well, let's see if we go back to the original color we had. Let's go ahead and select that, and let's fill it with this freeform color. And you click on it, it like, what? What's going on? I was like, well, where's the gradient? Well, what? There's nothing in there, but then it looks like it's white. But if you click on it, it doesn't highlight. It doesn't highlight the white. And I go, what's going on? I couldn't figure out what's going on. Well, I go, let's color it back black again, like that. And it's still giving me the same information. It's a compound path. And I'm going, seriously? Freeform gradients don't work on compounds? Nope, they don't work on compounds. I wasn't using this design. This design's actually worse than the other one that I figured it out in 5 minutes. I couldn't use it the way I wanted to use it. Where I had a tribal face design I did, and I should have put that in here. And then I applied it, and it only worked in like one of the elements. And the other elements didn't show anything. And I'm like, this doesn't show up in any of the elements. It's just stupid. And so how do you resolve that? Well, in this case, it's just creating a workaround. So if I want to do that, then I would use a shape like this. And if I go back to my graphic styles, I'd fill that with the radial gradient. I'd copy it, paste it behind this shape, select the top shape, and just mask it. That's the only way you can get it to show up within the confines. And it's not really in the compound path. You're just using a copy. You're just using the compound path as a mask for that. Because if you hover over it, that's the shape that's actually being masked. So just one of the more confusing things with compound paths. It seems like, I don't know, Illustrator has an issue with compound paths at times, in my opinion. They think it's normal, that's expected behavior, and nothing's wrong that I've shown you here. It's like, okay, well, it's not clear. So that's compound paths in a nutshell. What I want to do now is I want to review Angelique's artwork. So this is the sketch. She's taken some of the exercise files from my LinkedIn course called Drawing Vector Graphics, and this is one of them where it helps teach you the Clockwork Method. So I want to go over that briefly here because it leads up to using the Pathfinder method to unite all the shapes into the final artwork here. So like I always do, I'll go in here and I'll change this to like 15. Oops, make sure I have this selected. And we'll adjust the opacity on this like that. I'll lock the layer like this. And this was Angelique's vector art. Let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit on this. So compared to where she started on the other artwork she built and what her vectors look like, she's getting the hang of handling the smooth anchors like this one and controlling where to place your second one, etc. Little hiccup here. You know, you have a corner. This should be smooth. Those are easy to fix. You just can go up here and just click Convert Selected Anchor to Smooth. And then you just want to go back in and finesse your Bezier curve like this, where it comes to a terminal end again. She has a corner. She has the right type of anchor. There's only two types, corner and smooth. But she needs to finesse her Bezier curve handles that control those curves. And so one thing I would recommend, Angelique, is as you're building each shape, don't move on to a new shape until you go back and you finesse this detail. Fix those things as you go, and it'll make the process go faster. I think this one is technically in almost like a 10 o'clock position. I'd move it down to about 9 o'clock. Then you can fix this curve like this. Looks like you have this pulled out. I don't even think you need to. We'll just retract it and make the rest of the curve like that. So it's just about finessing those. I think here, this should be, anchor should be right over here about. Think of a clock, 12 o'clock position. Then you can adjust these like that. This one, I think, should be right at the bottom, is 6 o'clock. Then that'll help you create that curve going up into the build. This looks like it's a corner, so we'll make that a smooth. So not huge problems here. It's just, you just want to watch that. I did notice on the face, though, one more area, is you have a couple of these loops. Like you get to this point, and if I select this, you know, this isn't going to work. It makes the nose look flat. So I would select this and I go, and this is at this point I go, wait a minute, she has a copy. So somehow you copied some of your content where you had duplicates of it. So, I mean, I've done that at times, but that's going to make the process harder. So I usually pull these out so I can see them, select the anchor, and then I'll put them in the right direction. So this one there, this one here, probably want to move this one up, finesse it. This one I think is going to work better if you put it in a 6 o'clock position. I'm going to explain what I mean by a 6 o'clock position, like that. And then you can finesse this one. We have the same issue up here. So this is a smooth. You want this to be like that. Now, once you switch it on an anchor like that, you'll lose the Bezier. So to get them back, just grab the anchor point tool and just barely pull out like this. Then you get access to this handle, and then you can manipulate that one to get access to the other one. So just take your time. Don't go fast. Finish one section or one shape before you move to the next. I'd probably reposition this, and then you can adjust this curve to align with the underlying drawing. By the way, the drawing's never perfect, so just make those decisions as you go along. So for the most part, I thought you did pretty good on this. I just pay attention to those areas down here. You have an issue with this anchor. I think this is a corner. And yeah, it's a corner one, not smooth. So I think on this, actually, if I select these two and I just delete them, I think you could bring this one over. It could be hidden behind the areas that are going to make his chin. Then you could go smooth. Then all you have to do is pull out one handle on one side and another handle on the other side. And it's a lot easier to control that shape if you did that rather than the way you did. I think you have some issues here with this corner. This is a little flat, so I'd probably go like that. So I just wanted to show you that. Now, when I said I think this would look better in a 12 o'clock position or a 6 o'clock position, well, what am I talking about? I'm talking about the Clockwork Method. Now, years ago when I was teaching at a local college digital illustration, the students struggled with the same thing you're struggling with. And so I was figuring, how do I communicate this? And I came up with the idea of the Clockwork Method. As you look at your drawing or the given shape you need to create to form whatever you want to create in vector form, think of a clock. And this will associate with pretty close to where you need to place your anchor points. So what do I mean by that? Well, I took 2 images from my book. And if you think like a clock, if this is the shape, almost like a coral type shape, think of the clock. Like this one, you could think of the clock as kind of squished and rotated, but it shows you that the 9 o'clock position would have an anchor here. You would start where it comes to a corner. Any part of your art that comes to a corner like this or a point gets a point. Those are easy. It's the curved ones that are harder to discern. But if you think like a clock, you'll figure out where to put your first one. Think like a clock as you're going into this. This will be pretty close to 3 o'clock position, 12, 9. Then think of the clock again. You're back down to 6, 9. You're going up here. Maybe you distort your clock. This is like a mental trick of sorts. Then 6, 3, etc. Now, this could have been thought of more like this one. We just rotate it counterclockwise, so this would be 12 and this would be 9. So I hope that explains the Clockwork Method. Now, on my LinkedIn Learning video, I have it animated, and the editors did a good job of animating it. So as I'm building, they're fading in the clock to reinforce that idea. I couldn't do that. I don't know how to animate it like that. But that's the principle of the Clockwork Method. So I put this layer in here so any of you watching this can try to build this yourself. Now, I built it pretty much the same way Angelique did. That said, if I approach this now, I might build it a little differently now because my build tactics change over time. Once again, if I find an easier way to doing something, I always jump on that. I always do that. But she had a problem with, okay, I have my base shapes. As long as you clarify and fix those issues I pointed out, and you're ready to fuse things together, she didn't understand how to combine the shapes to create the final art. So that's what I want to go through now, and that's why we covered some of the basics with the Pathfinder, because it's Pathfinder methods we're going to use to do that. So I would probably start with this eye, and I'd just go like this. We'll go minus front. I'll take this, and I'll just leave that the way it is. I'm going to bring this to the front, select this eye. And actually, we'll do it for that. No, didn't want to do that. Make sure this is in front. Select this eye and minus front. Then the biggest parts, the hat is separate from the head shape itself. So we'll select those two. We'll go unite. So those get fused together. The ears are just 2 elliptical shapes. So I'll go ahead and unite those. I'll take the body, I'll unite that. Now, this is where I always go into isolation mode. Select areas I don't need, delete it like that. We have these shapes. This is going to make up the inner part of the ear. So we can take those, go minus front like that to create the inner part of the shape. Here we have the mouth. We just want the teeth to be here and the tongue. So I'll take these two shapes for the tongue like that. And then I will take this shape and I will clone it, select the tongue and go intersect so we get that tongue shape in there. That'll ultimately be white. This character will all be black and white. We can take two elliptical shapes down below with the face and the head. We can unite those like that. All of these shapes are the teeth. And if we go to the appearance panel, you can see these are a compound. So I'll take this bottom shape here, I'll bring it to front, and I have that set up for a F5 key. I never go up here and I go Object, Arrange, Bring to Front. Notice I have F5, so I just hit that. It's faster. That's on top of this elliptical shape. I can minus front like that. And I can, if I want to keep this shape down here, I think that'd actually look good. Let's go do this. I'll go ahead and see, I have key smart guides turned on, so I tend to turn it off when I'm doing this kind of stuff. Command U to turn them on, turn them off. I'll go like that because we're going to fuse these together. See, I'm using a freehand term all these years later, and I'm still using fuse. So if I take this shape right here, if we go to the appearance, it's a group. So I'm going to make sure that's a compound because I want to take this, which is on top of it now, and I want to minus front. Again, it'll revert back to a group. So I change it to a compound again, select the tongue, and we'll go unite like that. Again, I'll turn it to a compound. Now all I have to do is select all the internal elements like the eyes. So we'll select the eyes here like this, the inside of the ear and the mouth shapes. All these, I'll go unite. It'll group, become a group nature. I'll turn that into a compound, making sure it's above the other elements. Let's go ahead and select this. This is going to be black. No outline. We'll take the elements on top. Elements on, oh, I just noticed I forgot to do his top. Let's go and unite that. Again, we'll change it to a compound. Now we'll take the elements on top. We want it to visually be just white, black and white. We can turn off our sketch now. So these are just sitting on top, but I'll select them, select the base, and I'll go minus front. So it's punching through. So this shows through to the background now. And then I'll just turn it once again into a compound. That way, whether I want it black or maybe I want it to be colored red, whatever. So that's how I would combine the shapes using those methodology of unite and minus front, and also making sure to change to a compound nature when you need to so you don't accidentally lose anything. In this case, it's not so much because we don't have free-floating shapes. But ultimately, just to show a context of how you could use artwork like this, maybe it's Zeke's Creek Bait and Tackle Emporium. Now, I always try to show examples in the courses I do for LinkedIn Learning. I notice I made a mistake in here, and they didn't catch it, which is because they have people who do continuity reviews to make sure that I'm following, like, there's certain things they don't like having in courses. One is I used to show beer label designs when I'm talking about certain things. They said, you can't do that. I go, why? It's like, because of their enterprise contracts with corporations that don't like that it doesn't matter. I'm not pushing beer. I'm just pushing design. But they left this one in. It says cold beer. I should have put cold drinks there. That would have been safe. But they didn't catch it. So now I feel sneaky. But this typeface, by the way, yes, this is how I'd use a style or aesthetic like this. But this is a typeface I created. And I'm just going to show you that so you can see the same kind of artwork here. I just didn't punch it through, so you don't see the splatter through them. But this is called Nincompoop. It's a font I did years ago. Don't do a lot of fonts, but I do like creating them. It's kind of fun. And if you get access to the exercise files, you get Nincompoop Font for free. So, well, for $3.65, you get the Nincompoop font. Not only that, I included the chapter from my book, Vector Basic Training, the chapter on the Clockwork Method. So read that, practice it, and I think that's going to help you improve your vector building skills. And I hope, well, let me address Angelique. Angelique, I encourage you to keep working at it. From what I saw initially that you sent me several weeks ago to what I see now, you are improving. It's hard for individuals, all of us, to look at our own workflow methods and see improvement in what I would call the micro. But I guarantee you, after a year of keep practicing this methodology, you'll look back and you'll see a distinct improvement and you'll only get better. That's great. That's the way it should work. So I look back at designs that I created years ago and it makes me cringe. I think that's pretty normal. I think reviewing the basics, whether you're a seasoned creative veteran like myself or you're new to Adobe Illustrator, it doesn't matter who you are. We all have room to improve our skills. I can't remember the name. There's somebody who watches my content on this channel, and she does a great job of pointing certain things out that I didn't cover or whatever. She would be a great content editor, or what I call a technical editor for somebody writing a book on Illustrator. But I've learned stuff because she's pointed out, or she reminds me of things that are in Astute Graphics plugin that I had heard about, but then I never made it part of my process, and then I forgot about it, and she reminds me of it. And she reminded me of that with moving an anchor at the same angle you built something with, and I use it all the time now. I still wish there was I could add a keyboard shortcut that would change to that tool. It'd make it even better, but for whatever reason, they don't let plugins use keyboard shortcuts, unfortunately. But I do appreciate that. So that said, if you guys want to give me feedback on something that I may have overlooked, especially with Pathfinder, by all means, send it to me. That's the kind of communication I enjoy. Thank you again to those who have become members of this channel. It allows me the time to create content like this to help people. Now, this one was specifically for Angelique, but I purposely went into a deep dive on the Pathfinder because all of us are going to struggle with that at times. That's just the nature, it seems, of this software. I think I might have told the story before. I think I have. But when I moved from freehand to Illustrator, I had the mindset, oh, they're vector programs. It's like, can't be that different. Only to realize after a year, I had to completely forget everything I knew about building vector art. Otherwise, it was going to continue to be a struggle. And yes, that helped me improve my abilities in Illustrator, but Illustrator still, after 23 years, isn't as intuitive as freehand was. And that tells me a lot about their development. So just wanted to put that out there. Thank you again for those who have become members of this channel and those who give my movies a simple like. That helps too. Until next time, I hope this content will help you improve your own creative process. And I really do mean this. Thank you for watching. And thank you for those who post comments. Sometimes they're questions. Those are awesome. That gives me ideas for new content. But thank you for those who also just give me some encouragement. Sometimes I get a little frustrated, and that always picks me up. So thank you so much for watching, and go out there and create.